Hi everybody, and welcome to Movie Recaps with Brit. Today, we will be taking a look at a movie based on a true story, titled A Taxi Driver. Without further ado, let's get started. Kim works as a taxi driver in Seoul during the 1980s when students take to the streets to protest against the Chun Doo-won regime, often facing military arrests. This results in frequent traffic jams and even accidents for Kim. Furthermore, the implementation of martial law and curfews leads to a decline in his customer base. However, he persists and continually expands his knowledge, particularly in finding alternative routes. As a single parent, Kim undertakes this daily struggle to modestly provide for his beloved daughter. Despite the lack of affection, his daughter comprehends the circumstances and harbors deep love for Kim. Meanwhile, Peter, a German journalist majoring in post-war broadcasting services, learns from his fellow reporters about the escalating severity of South Korea's riots. In a hurry, he journeys to the countryside and assumes the role of a church missionary in order to gain entry. Immediately, he encounters a local journalist in Seoul to gain insight into the situation. To his astonishment, there exists a particular city named Gwangju within the country that endures the harshest form of martial law. The conditions within Gwangju remain concealed from the outside world, as all access has been severed. Even the government censors an entire page of the local newspaper to suppress the truth. Upon learning this, Peter feels motivated to enter the city and expose the deception. Meanwhile, Kim enjoys a lunch treat from his friend when he unexpectedly hears from another taxi driver that a foreigner is seeking a driver to take him to Gwangju for a sum of 100,000 Korean won. Lured by the prospect of money, Kim hastily heads to the designated meeting spot to pick up the foreigner, who turns out to be Peter, the German journalist. He adopts the identity of the other driver and introduces himself to Peter. Despite Kim's limited English skills, Peter agrees to have him as the driver. Unbeknownst to Kim, they are about to enter one of South Korea's most perilous cities. Upon their arrival in Gwangju, they encounter the military. Realizing the situation, Kim promptly turns back to Seoul as he was not briefed on the city's conditions. Peter threatens to withhold payment unless they enter Gwangju that day, prompting Kim to reluctantly seek an alternate route and drive onward. Despite his efforts, they once again encounter the military. Fortunately, Peter assumes the role of an important businessman, and they manage to persuade the military to grant them passage. Inside Gwangju, Kim requests an advance payment, and Peter hands over half of the agreed-upon amount. They venture through the seemingly deserted city and come across the student protesters. Fortunately, a student named Jasik is proficient in English. The students erupt with cheers and shouts, filled with hope that Peter might possess the ability to assist them in unveiling the oppressive military regime. They express gratitude towards Kim, who has placed himself at risk to bring Peter into the city. Peter and the students then devise a plan to head to the hospital. However, concerned about the safety of his car during the ongoing riot, Kim decides to make a U-turn and intends to leave Peter behind. On his way, an elderly woman pleads with Kim to take her to the hospital, as she fears for her son's well-being due to the soldiers' brutal treatment of protesters in recent days. Inside the bustling hospital, tension arises between the reporters and local taxi drivers. The reporters are unable to expose the military's atrocities, while the taxi drivers frequently aid injured protesters and even sustain damage to their vehicles in the process. Kim and the elderly woman enter the hospital, where they encounter rooms filled with injured and deceased protesters. Fortunately, the elderly woman's son is safe. Kim faces reproach from Peter and Jasik for leaving them earlier. Moreover, he is accused of pilfering Peter's equipment, which had been left in the back seat of his car. Kim attempts to justify his actions, but the local drivers and students refuse to accept his explanation. In response, he returns the advance payment to Peter and vows to stand by him until the end. At the gas station, Kim is taken aback when he receives free fuel. Jasik elucidates that taxi drivers are regarded as heroes for transporting injured protesters to the hospital, with some even being arrested for their noble actions. Upon hearing this, Kim begins to grasp the true condition and empathize with the protesters and citizens of Gwangju. He is warmly embraced by the people for bringing Peter into the city. They part ways for him, applaud their presence, and even offer homemade food. The trio then ascends to a rooftop to capture comprehensive footage of the ongoing riot. There, they befriend a local reporter who cautions them about the hostile reception foreign journalists receive and the military's pursuit of them. Both Peter and Kim, along with Jasik, find themselves in grave peril. On the ground, a fierce confrontation unfolds between the people and the military. Regardless of age and gender, numerous individuals are subjected to brutal attacks and even targeted by groups of armed forces. Injured protesters are forcefully dragged away, seemingly for further harm. Peter and Jasik venture downstairs to capture more impactful footage and provide assistance to the wounded, disregarding the warnings of the local reporter. As the situation deteriorates, Kim endeavors to save Peter, but the journalist becomes enraged, mistakenly believing that Kim is trying to hinder him. Unbeknownst to Peter, the military has disguised themselves as civilians, targeting him as their objective. Fortunately, they manage to evade capture and escape unscathed. During the night, Kim and Peter make plans to return to Seoul. Prior to parting ways, Peter assures Jae-sik that the world will bear witness to the atrocities committed in Gwangju. However, Kim's taxi breaks down, and they are compelled to spend the night in the city while awaiting repairs. Concerns for his daughter's safety weigh heavily on Kim, filling him with anxiety. Regrettably, he is unable to make a phone call to his daughter, as the military has severed the city's communication lines. Due to the language barrier, Peter mistakenly assumes that Kim's anxiety stems from the financial burden of the repair cost, and insensitively attempts to offer assistance by pulling out his wallet. Kim places the blame on Peter, leading to a heated argument between them. Eventually, Kim relents and reluctantly accepts their fate. Unbeknownst to them, the military has identified Peter and devised a plan to capture both him and Kim. Meanwhile, the trio finds refuge for the night with a local taxi driver named Hwang and his family. They are warmly welcomed with a comforting dinner and share laughter together. On another front, the local reporters secretly print incriminating news articles to support the riot. However, their efforts are abruptly interrupted when other employees and management members barge in, fearing that such actions would jeopardize the company and their own safety. In addition to controlling the print media, the military also seizes control of the television news. The channel downplays the number of student casualties and inflates the losses suffered by the military. Moreover, they spread false information alleging that the students have colluded with gangsters from Seoul to spread malicious rumors about the government. Before long, the dissemination of this false news incites the rioters to unleash chaos at the TV station. In an abrupt turn of events, the military swiftly arrives and begins to pursue the trio. Frantically, they seek refuge in an abandoned building, hoping to evade capture. However, a mishap occurs as one of Peter's film rolls slips from his possession, prompting Jae-sik to volunteer and retrieve it. Unfortunately, as Jae-sik descends the stairs, the military lies in wait, seizing him as a hostage. Demanding that Peter surrender the camera and film rolls, they hold Jae-sik's fate in their hands. Kim, driven by the desire to rescue Jae-sik, yearns to intervene, but Jae-sik selflessly sacrifices himself instead. He passionately exclaims in English that Peter must preserve the footage and save himself to reveal the truth to the world. Overwhelmed with sorrow, Peter and Kim leave Jae-sik behind and escape, burdened by a heavy heart. While navigating a dimly lit alley, Kim bears witness to the soldiers mercilessly tormenting the injured protesters. In the midst of their pursuit, one of the pursuers corners Kim and confronts him, resulting in a brief altercation that ends with Kim's swift defeat. Fortunately, Peter comes to Kim's aid and rescues him from the perilous situation. As dawn breaks, Kim departs early to return to his daughter, leaving behind the tumultuous events of Gwangju. Surprisingly, Hwang bids him farewell with a welcoming heart, offering a concealed path and a new license plate to elude the military's scrutiny. Additionally, Peter ensures that Kim receives full payment for his services. Kim expresses remorse for leaving the people of Gwangju to face their battle alone. Kim departs and makes a stop at a nearby city to repair his vehicle. Seizing the opportunity, he promptly contacts his daughter, apologizing sincerely for his absence. Thankfully, his daughter is safe under the care of their landlord's family. Eager to bring her a token of affection, he ventures to a local market to purchase souvenirs. During breakfast, he encounters fabricated rumors and misleading information concerning the Gwangju riots, precisely as the military intended. Moreover, he cannot dismiss the memories of the locals' kindness in Gwangju and finds himself deeply empathizing with their plight. Driven by his conscience, he reaches out to his daughter once more, expressing his apologies as he prepares to once again put himself at risk. With urgency, he rushes to Hwang's residence only to discover that Hwang is hospitalized. As Kim navigates the hospital's corridors, he becomes acutely aware of the worsening conditions. Tragically, he learns of Jae-sik's demise, his lifeless body discovered in a rice field after being forcibly taken by the military. Unable to bear the horrifying sight, he urges Peter to take a stand and expose the atrocity to the world. Kim successfully convinces Peter to retrieve his camera and document everything. Suddenly, a friend of Hwang arrives and alerts them that the military is opening fire on the people who are joyously celebrating a significant holiday. They hastily make their way to the location and discover that the soldiers have blocked the streets, transforming the confrontation into a merciless massacre. The soldiers show no mercy even towards those attempting to aid the wounded. Despite some students waving a white flag as a plea for mercy, they too are ruthlessly gunned down, followed by further shootings aimed at eradicating the protesters. Determined to save the injured, Hwang, Kim, and the local taxi drivers bravely drive their taxis into the midst of the chaos. Some drivers intentionally steer their vehicles towards the soldiers, obstructing their line of sight. Others crawl on the ground while dodging bullets to rescue the wounded. When their escape routes are cut off, a courageous student drives a truck to create a barrier, seizing the opportunity for the people to flood the streets and rescue the injured. Some of the wounded individuals are successfully rescued, but the soldiers persist in their relentless march, firing upon the people and causing more casualties. The heart-wrenching scene overwhelms Peter, yet he is compelled to capture it all on film to expose the horrors. Kim and the rest of the group manage to escape unharmed, but their spirits are shattered by the atrocities they have witnessed. As they are reminded of their responsibility, Kim and Peter hastily attempt to flee the city, closely pursued by the military. Once again, Kim hesitates to abandon the suffering people, but this time he musters the strength to carry on. However, upon reaching the city's outskirts, they find all the secret routes blocked off. Peter conceals his camera, and they disguise themselves once more, but the soldiers remain suspicious and refuse to believe their deception. A sergeant inspects their vehicle and discovers Kim's old car plate, yet he chooses to remain silent, torn by the massacre he has witnessed. Unfortunately, the other soldiers soon realize their true identities and open fire. To make matters worse, 4 cars filled with personnel join the pursuit, cornering them. Amidst the despair, Hwang and the other taxi drivers arrive just in time to provide a lifeline. They obstruct the military's advance and create a gap between Kim and the pursuers. Despite facing gunfire, their primary concern is ensuring Kim and Peter's safety. One by one, the taxi drivers encounter accidents and meet their demise. After a while, Hwang makes the difficult decision to release Kim and Peter from his protection. He drives backward, intentionally colliding with the chasing cars. Through this self-sacrifice, Kim and Peter manage to escape, but at the cost of innocent lives from Gwangju. At the airport, Peter once again outwits the security measures by reserving 2 flights under his name, diverting attention away from their true intentions. He cleverly conceals his film rolls within metal containers. Finally, before parting ways, he requests Kim's full name, intending to repay him fully once he has published his documented footage. Nevertheless, Kim refuses to provide his real name and instead offers a fabricated one. They embrace, acknowledging their indescribable connection, and bid each other a final farewell. Kim returns to his home where his daughter anxiously awaits his arrival. After a considerable period, the footage at long last reaches the international news circuit, exerting immense pressure on the South Korean government. Several years elapse, and Peter garners accolades in the form of human rights awards for his courageous publication. Yet, despite tirelessly searching for Kim throughout this time, they remain unable to reunite. Peter dedicates all his achievements to Kim, whom he deeply longs to meet once again. Thank you for watching our movie recap. While it may seem simple, it actually took a lot of hard work and dedication to produce. If you enjoyed the video, we kindly ask you to show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. By doing so, you'll stay updated on our latest content and help us continue creating more in-depth analyses and critiques of the movies you love. Thank you again for your support.